I'd like to call the common council meeting for September 17th to order. Has it been appropriately noticed?
Yes, Your Honor, it has.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Rogers. Here. Alderman Rozak.
Here.
Alderman Shaw.
Here.
Alderman Ellis.
Here.
Alderman Spiegelberg. Here. Alderman Zwart.
Here.
Alderman Stray.
I'm here.
Alderman Kavieski.
Here.
First item is a public hearing. The purpose of the purpose is to hear public comment on amending Chapter 27 Impact Fee Ordinance of the Municipal Code. That's about all I have to say about that, so go ahead. Yep.
So this is housekeeping to our impact fee ordinance, Chapter 27 of the Municipal Code. Earlier this year, we adopted new fees and new impact fees. Going through the ordinance itself, there were changes that needed to be made to the language to clean that up, to coincide with our fees and also with current state law. The major change for state law language in here is the collection of impact fees for any developments that owe more than $75,000 in fees, where they do have the ability now to defer that for some time. And that language is included in here. So all the new language should get us current with the law, with the current impact fee laws.
Thank you, Lori. Is there any public comment on the ordinance that our finance director discussed? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and move on to regular business. First item is approval of the meeting minutes from August 20th, 2019. We need a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are passed. Next is comments and suggestions from citizens. If you have a comment on any subject, there are blue cards at the table. Please fill one out. I'll call your name randomly. Please limit your comment. We have a full house here tonight. We have a lot of things on the agenda, so please limit your comments to about 3 minutes and don't repeat what somebody else has said on the same subject. Jennifer Ames?
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Ames. I am at 721 Thackeray Trail, and I'm also a small business owner downtown, S&J Cafe. I am here because I want to voice my concern again about Thackeray Trail and voting no to the extension, but also as a business owner, and I see the plans for Thackeray Trail and the amount of money that it's going to be costing the city to put the road through. And I guess, did any of you went to the Fall Festival? I had a lot of problems with parking down there when that happened. People were illegally parked on my property. I had bicycles chained to a sapling tree behind my building that I'm trying to grow. And people that were actually taking my tenants' parking spots. And I said, I don't know if I should call the police or what should I do to get these people moved? And they said, most of the police are probably gonna be busy and aren't gonna deal with parking issues down there. So I see parking as a huge problem that if money is going to be put to connectivity and putting a street through, I think it would be better used to addressing the parking problems downtown if we're gonna continue to have these great events. Fall Fest was a huge success, and it was fun, and it brought business, and I am not against them. I just am against not having parking spots for my tenants or my guests. Thanks.
Thank you. Jill Persick?
Thank you. Hi. My name is Jill Persick. I live at 701 York Imperial Drive in Oconomowoc. And this is about a technology committee. Now, the creation of a technology committee is in the city's strategic plan for 2019 through 2024, and that was approved in July. But I noticed that it's located under Section 5, which reads to enhance the effectiveness of our city government. And that's point C number 4, and that's where it's located in the plan. And it looks like that's intended to address billing and other really important, government functions. But I'm here to urge you to create a bigger, more intensive technology committee. And I know Lynn Stull of Oconomowoc Safe Technology submitted to you a proposal in March that was really comprehensive of a technology committee. And her proposal was given as a community member, and it really addresses the important and really fast-growing technology that's kind of coming. Now, that was March, and it's now September, so I'm wondering what's being done about the technology committee, and because I think it needs to be a priority. Questions that my neighbors are going to start to be asking each of their aldermen pretty soon, I know, are things like, so is 5G coming here? And is fiber optics an option? What are the benefits and the risks of all those technologies? And am I going to have a say into what technology is best for me? And is the city going to inform me of the choices that I have? And then they'll ask things like, what's my recourse when I find out I don't want several antennas on my street? They'll hear that there'll be antennas maybe every third house. Is that really true? And how is my property value going to be impacted? And who's liable if my privacy is adversely violated? People are hearing that the telecommunications industry isn't liable for the use of their products. So who's liable? And they'll ask, what do I need to know about how to protect my kids in my school with their use of the technology? And why haven't we done what that other community has done? And I'm sure you want to hear, thank you for your efforts, rather than something like, well, why didn't you do something? Did you know that in May of this year, Brussels, Belgium, and Geneva, Switzerland put a freeze on permits to erect further 5G antennas? Well, why would they do that, and how could they do that? The Ashland Public Schools in Massachusetts adopted a best practices for mobile devices policy in 2015 that included prohibiting cell phone towers and base stations on school buildings and on school property. How could they do that? Also, did you know that the former president of Microsoft Canada, Frank Clegg, said recently, many communities in the US and around the world are passing moratoriums preventing the rollout of 5G until it's proven safe. Do we need to do that? We need a technology committee immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry Halverson?
Hi, my name is Larry Halverson. I'm at 1234 West Wisconsin Avenue here in Oconomowoc. First of all, I'd like to thank the committee that's been working on the safety building. They come up and have done basically the impossible. We were told a year ago that it was impossible to reduce the cost of the safety building. Not only did this committee reduce it, but they beat it by almost $1 million. The question is, how did they do it? I haven't seen any document that outlines what those changes were. I have a few more comments on that. I haven't heard anything about the roof. The last time we got a report, I think the inspection was done during a snowstorm, or at least with snow on the roof. The roof on this building is at best, I think the original one, which is probably 20-some years old, and is at the end of its design life and will have to be replaced. None of those costs are included in this proposal. Another part of the proposal is that the dais for the municipal court for $61,347 was included in the Camasee bid, and they said that the court was going to pay for this. And the question I have on that is, who's going to pay for it up front? Is that going to be part of the contract price? I don't believe it should be. I believe it should be part of the court and let them do it, because if you look at the bids, 3 other contractors were less than half of that price. Doesn't make any sense for us to spend that kind of money when other contractors can do it for significantly less. Another question I have is what happened being we have the court lease drop $144,000. That doesn't make any sense at all. What happened? No comments there either. We also look at some of the value-added stuff that the city wants to do, or the people on this team. One was bringing solid stone or stone veneer. What value added does that bring? Nothing. It just costs the taxpayers. What added value is there for solid surfaces? Nothing. Why are we even wasting time and spending money on it? The trench for the garage is probably the only one that makes any sense at all, and that is extremely expensive. When I look at the layout, I see that there's only one entrance and exit into the garage for the police vehicles. I've been in a purchasing department for a major manufacturer, and we had overhead garage doors. I can tell you they fail. And regardless of what some people will tell you, if that cable breaks, and it will break, I'm 100% certain it'll break at least once a year, nothing is going to go in and out of that door. There isn't men around that can lift it, and that motor will not lift it because it's going to cock and it's going to stick there, which means all of those vehicles are stuck in that building until somebody gets in there and replaces that cable. That's a serious design flaw, and the architects should be ashamed of themselves for promoting that. I would also like to see somebody come out and tell me that they're going to furnish that entire facility for the $300,000 that they have. When I look at the drawings, there's an awful lot of furniture and chairs and everything else that's in there. Personally, I don't believe it can be done for $300,000, and I'd like to see somebody put their name on it, that they're going to furnish it like the drawing shows for $300,000. And not when we walk into that building, they've spent $300,000 and we got a bunch of empty open spaces because they ran out of money. I would also like to see the city council rescind the $500,000 that they authorized for a radio communication system and move that to the county, which has a state-of-the-art system, and use the same system that our current fire department does. I see no reason to duplicate all these efforts. It doesn't make any sense, and it's another waste of money. Final comment, this is the wrong building in the wrong place, and it should be rejected in its entirety and started over. Thank you.
Melissa Cron?
Good evening. I want to thank the members of the council for taking the time to really delve into the issue of Thackeray Trail. Over the past few months, I appreciate the time you've put into listening to our concerns, understanding our neighborhood, and the changes that would result if the extension was added. More recently, you've looked at designing and repairing of the current and existing road and have said that you want to do it correctly. All of those things, I appreciate your effort, and I'm glad that we worked together as a team. And I know that it felt good to be heard. As we went through this process, there's one part where I think the ball has been dropped. And that is we have not addressed the safety issue up by Walgreens. No matter what we do to make safety a concern on any of the other parts of the project, if that piece is not fixed, the whole thing will tumble. I have heard Mr. Fry say to me, we can't do a traffic study until after the extension is put through or after this is fixed or after that. This is already here. We already know that there's an issue, be it Thackeray Trail extended or not. My hope is that it is not. But why would we even consider an extension when we already have an existing traffic issue? Where we know that cars are constantly having difficulties getting in and out, that there is a short area when they turn in there, and the potential for more traffic accidents and for people to get injured even if there is even if there is a sidewalk there. So I think you need to strongly consider that as you move forward, because safety has been one thing we've all agreed upon. And we need to take that area into consideration, as that is the huge basis that leads on to the bypass that creates more traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Weimer?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm here tonight representing Lake Country Municipal Court. Unfortunately, I was elected chairman of the Long Range Planning Construction Committee, and we've been working diligently with the city on finalizing the plans for the court. We were able to do that, and last week we went back to the 19 other, the 20 communities and reviewed the plans, and it was passed unanimous by the communities to recommend to the city council to move forward with the project for the new police department and court. There's a lot of excitement out there about this for the court. The good news is the court has money in the bank to cover the stuff that's needed for our part of the construction. With the bids coming in under what was projected, it reduced our 20-year lease payment to something that's very favorable now, and I feel confident that as the court moves down the road, we're gonna be able to afford the rent, and because I'm very scared about going back to what we did in the 80s and 90s, where the municipalities had to subsidize about 50% of the court operations, and we haven't been able to, or we haven't done that since the early 90s. So the court is self-sustaining. We have money set aside for this project, and I would ask the council to look favorably on this, and we're looking forward to the move. I just want to thank you on that and pass that on to you, so thanks.
Thank you, Don. Lynn Wright?
Lynn Wright, 707 Marigold Street, Oconomowoc. I'm here to address the parking lot that's behind Great Harvest Avenue Square that has been in dire need of repair for many, many years. And it has gotten to the point that it really should be closed, because just even last Friday, it fills with water. The potholes are not safe for vehicles. And I addressed this issue on August 2nd with Mark Fry, and he said that the council, the reconstruction of the lot was part of our 2019 street projects. The engineering work was put on hold while the Common Council reviewed other options for parking in the downtown. The reconstruction of the lot will now take place in 2020. So I contacted my alderperson, Karen, and we've been going back and forth. And she explained to me some of the options that you're going through, that you were looking at building a two-story building there, a two-story parking structure there, but because of some of the soil underneath or whatever, that might not be possible. You were looking at other options to make it so that there was continuity between that parking lot and someplace else. Now you're looking at possibly across from City Beach to build a structure. Is that the First Bank parking lot that you're talking about to build a two-story? As the first person stated, we have all these fabulous events here. All this building is done to attract people to Oconomowoc. And I was talking to the owner of Fresh Baked on Friday, and she said the majority of our customers actually are tourists. So it's working, okay? So, but it's not presenting Oconomowoc in a very good light. You have the Wizard of Oz event, you have the Fall Fest, and where do people park? In that parking lot. It has gotten to the point that it's a gross negligence issue for the city of Oconomowoc since we own that parking lot. If anybody gets injured in there, that parking lot, they can sue the city, which affects every resident. So it's something that needs to get done now, sooner rather than later. And also, I know bids have to go out months in advance because I know that the underpass, the ramps for the underpass by 67, they only got one bid on it. So it's going out in November to get bid for next year. So if this is going to get done next year, are there plans? What is the status of it? And when is it going out to bid? Or else it's not going to get done because there is so much construction going on in the state of Wisconsin, which is all fabulous, but you need to be on top of it. And especially since it was slated for 2019, there really is no excuse on each and every one of you for it not being done. Thank you.
Thank you. Joy Gascon?
Hello, my name's Joy Gaskin. I live at 741 Thackeray Trail. Here we go again. I just wanted to first of all thank all of you. You've had to be the sounding board for so many of us and maybe the punching bag from some of us, and I really appreciate it. I think I've talked to almost all of you, and it does mean a lot to have you here. I'm talking about the Thackeray Trail extension. I guess first and foremost, I do want to mention that it meant so much to me, I think it was 2 meetings ago, when Mayor Knoll, you had mentioned, hey, the extension is not going to be operable. It's not going to be open for through traffic till Thackeray Trail is safe. That meant so much to me, and I've been trying to spread that word because I think that is probably the #1 reason that we don't want this to go through. It's just, you know, so full of kids and bus stops and dogs and walkers that for me to be able to know that you've got us covered in that really meant the world to me. So I appreciate that. There's one other thing that I think is interesting, though, and kind of like the logistics of living there. My husband and I were driving through Waukesha Sunday, and we happened to be on Grandview, that real residential area of Grandview. And as we were driving through, we thought, gosh, this looks just like Thackeray Trail. And I've been on that road before, but it really struck us Sunday. And the traffic was going slow. I think it's 25, 30 miles an hour there. But the traffic was continuous. It was car after car after car. And we noticed there's this real steady flow of traffic. And we said, you know, this is probably what Thackeray's going to look like when it's done. You know, beautiful, kind of like Beaver Cleaver neighborhood, you know. So I was on the bus stop this morning, and I asked the people that sit at the bus stop, are you going to the meeting tonight? And they said, no. And I said, you know, you really should go and just say how you feel. I said, I was on Grandview, and I told them the whole story. And coincidentally, one of the dads said, my mother-in-law lives on Grandview, and you'll sit there for 10 minutes, and you can't back out. It's not that it's a fast road, it's just a very busy road. And like I've said before, there's over 26 driveways that back out of Thackeray Trail. And those yards are not ones we can put turnarounds on. So that's just something to think about, I guess. I was going to say one other thing, and it's left me, so it couldn't have been that important. But anyways, thanks a lot for everything you've done. I appreciate your time, and if you would consider, I really want sidewalks, and I really want a nice driveway and not have to mow a great deep culvert, but I don't want the extension to go through. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Come on up. Go ahead. We know who you are.
Came from the annual school meeting where 15 citizens voted to tax themselves to the tune of $55 million. So you guys are talking about peanuts here, okay? I wanted to urge you to move forward on the public safety building, and I particularly wanted to urge one of the two aldermen from my district, 4th District, Alderman Ellis, who has said 10 million and no more. This is slightly more, it's $750,000 more. But I would urge you to vote for it, because if we're going to spend this much money, let's spend that and do it right. And I can tell you from 16 years in office and another 40 watching government in action, nothing gets cheaper by delaying it. We've already found that out, the county has, by not proceeding with the tunnel under Highway 67 and the, for the bike trail. This, you know, we've already, I think, delayed this beyond the point where we should have. We need the public safety building. We purchased that land, that building a long time ago. We did it in part because we thought that area of the city needed renewal, and the city was going to invest its bit in that part to encourage that renewal. So it's not just a public safety building. It's a statement that says we believe in this community and we believe in this downtown. And it is so important to have the public safety department in your downtown. It's just absolutely vital. So I'm urging a yes vote tonight.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll close this portion of the meeting, move on to the regular part. First item is our next item is the consent agenda. Tonight we have 5 items, licenses, utility easement, and access and pedestrian easement, and electric utility easement, and the treasurer's report. So we need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? You see in front of you at your desk, there is a revised list of bartender licenses that was updated, so that's part of the licenses, so. Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray. Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Next, under finance, consider act on an ordinance to repeal and recreate certain sections of Chapter 27 of the City of Oconomowoc Municipal Code concerning impact fees. We need a motion to give the ordinance its first reading.
So moved. Second.
Lori, is there anything else to bring up on it, or? Don't have anything else unless there's. Any questions for Lori on the impact fee resolution, or, ordinance?
Well, I think we should just explain for the people, if we could, briefly, 30 seconds, what we're voting on. There's a lot of people here.
I'm sorry, yeah, for the public hearing, we'll say, you know, this is a housekeeping on language in the impact fee ordinance, Chapter 27 of the Municipal Code. What we're doing is not changing any fees. We're only changing language to conform with current state law and to take out things that no longer pertain to the city of Oconomowoc.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Any questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw. Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Without objection, we'll make the ordinance law. Waive the second reading.
So moved. Second.
You don't have to really make a you don't have to. Okay. Ordinances become law. Moving on, protection and welfare. Consider act on a resolution for construction bid award and downward revised estimated project budget for the new public safety facility. I'll let Mark do his presentation first, and then we'll go with the motion, if there is one.
Thank you, Mayor. The first slide that we have before us tonight, as we go through and kind of give a little bit of history on the project, some of the different costs that we've looked at as we've been working on this project over the last couple of years. So in the upper left is the rendering of what we propose for the building to look like. In the lower right-hand corner is what it currently looks like. This facade has been approved by the Architectural Commission. So I always like to show this drawing. This is the 1886 drawing of City Hall. It's interesting in the fact that, You know, we had a marshal back then, this looks to be cells. Had the council room, courtroom, were all contained in this building. But I think the interesting point of it is that this building served the city for 100 years before it needed an addition. You know, so, you know, that they put up a large structure, it's a beautiful building, and they were looking at the future. So in '03 and then also then in '17, we did space needs study to let us know what we should be looking at for building. And in 2016, we did a staffing study that did recommend additional officers as we move forward. The site selection, the Century site was not the first site that we were actually looking at. There was a site prior to that we had done a resolution of necessity, and we were negotiating for the purchase of that. And prior to that, staff had gone out and viewed a handful of buildings throughout the community and an empty lot to see if they were feasible. In the end, we did, the council did support the purchase of the Century building. One of the big factors there was that it was in the downtown. It had plenty of room for parking. And then also there was an existing structure there, which at that time we were estimating a $2 million savings when it came to construction. So after the council moved forward with the site, which was, you know, the highlight here, we've had several meetings and talked different costs and worked with the council. But then in December of 2017, it was authorized to purchase the Century building at just over $2 million. That was on a 7-1 vote. 2018, we moved forward as we worked with the design. In May, the council approved FGM Architects, who have been the ones working on the project. September 4th, at the Common Council meeting, we had brought forth a building with a budget of $11.247 million. That was an estimated overall total project cost. That did fail on a vote of 3 to 5. We then went back and met in the committee of the whole on November 13th and walked through the project. And at that time, the council did add back in the $500,000 for the parking lot that we had taken out in order to get down to the 11.2. So that's where the number 11.7 comes from. November 20th, that the schematic floor plan and the projected budget was approved at the council on a 5-3 vote. So, you know, we all know that the existing station has deficiencies associated with it. This is pretty much the list. There could be a couple more, but it really comes down to operational inefficiencies within the building that we have. When we started looking at this, we did a kind of a block diagram to start talking with the council, talking about the items that are now being covered, you know, the deficiencies, the indoor parking, having operational areas, secure areas. Our evidence and booking areas are greatly improved as we look at this building, and it will accommodate future growth. Schematic layout that we're showing here, this actually came right out of the bid set, and we picked the one that showed the furniture in it because we wanted everybody else to be able to have an idea of the size and scale of the rooms. If you just look at the drawings without the furniture, they look like big open spaces, so this kind of defines it a little bit better. There is one room up here that doesn't have any furniture in it. That's our workout room, and that was proposed, and from day one, the police department has indicated that they were more than willing to step up and do fundraising or obtain donations in order to put equipment into that room. So that's why it's empty, because it's not anything that is coming out of any of the budgets that we're going to be talking about here tonight. So we received 5 construction bids. We thought that was very, very good for the time that we were hitting the market. And as you can see, the first 5 are literally within $400,000 of each other. So in addition to getting multiple bids, showed that the bid specifications and the plans that went out were obviously able to be looked at and understood, so that there wasn't a lot of question marks involved with the process, which will skew your pricing. Couldn't tell you why Wright Construction ended up, $1 million higher. So then, alternates were discussed earlier tonight, and we are proposing 3 of them. As we were going through the bidding process, we were looking at our costs, and at that time, thought that, we may be close to the number that we had based on the estimates that we were receiving. And for that reason, we made some changes in the bid documents. And with the favorable number that came back, we're asking to add $70,000 of the items back into the bid. Alternate 3 was to, we have an accent wall that's in the community room, multi-purpose room, and it'll also serve as the courtroom. We did have a stone face on there in our original design. We did opt to change that to a vinyl wallpaper, and we're asking to put that back in. The solid surface material, there's a handful of areas, report writing, evidence area, forensics, records area, the IT room, that we'd taken the countertops that, were originally projected to be a solid surface material for longevity, and we changed them into a plastic laminate, much like you see in your residential homes, in the lower end residential homes nowadays. But we're asking to add that back in. We think there's good value to that. The trench drains, the sally port, and then the garage area has manholes that are stationed in, fairly large spacing, and all the floors have to slope there. Generally, you'll end up squeegeeing the water over there, and we just know that the trench drains would be a lot more effective. That's the biggest share of the $70,000 that we're asking to add back in, is that the cost is at $36,000. Last item are side lights on the doors. So one of the things that was key for Chief Berger and his department is the ability that if you're walking down the hall, someone can have their door closed for privacy, whoever they're talking, but you still have the visibility to look in the office and, know that there's nothing going on, or someone can't make the claim, oh, they threw me in an office and closed the door and no one could see what was taking place. So that's where we felt the side lights were important. The court dais, now, that was one of the items that, in working with the court, they had selected a fixed structure. This is a fairly large structure. I believe it's about 30 feet long, end to end. We'll have a picture coming up. It's built in place. It has to be Class A fire rated because of the use of the building, and so because of that, it does come with a little bit higher price, and that's the $61,000. That's 100% of the court's responsibility. So when we get to the budget numbers and total project costs as we move through this, that $61,000 is not included in there. It is included in the resolution as part of the base bid. So that's part of the 6.99, so that was included in there. And the construction and the resolution for the construction is between the city and Camosi, so that's why that number is in there, but it is 100% the court's expenditure. Alternate 7, we did put in and ask for a deduct if we try to go to a slightly thinner vinyl tile material. Once again, with the numbers coming in favorable, we don't feel that we have to make that move, and we want to maintain the more heavy-duty tile that's for this facility. A lot of people don't realize the wear and tear that takes place when you have a 24/7, 365 operation like we do. But one of the other reasons for some of the discount, or the, not discount, but the lower cost of the bid was we had items in there that were in the original estimated cost for the building construction that during our value engineering discussion, we decided to pull out, feeling that the city can probably get a better deal handling the purchase on our own. So those are the lockers, which would be in the men's and women's locker rooms, and then also in the, for the dispatchers. Fuming hood and the drying cabinet, those are both items that are in the evidence area for processing evidence. So we're asking that since we've pulled those out of the bid, that we would be making those direct purchases. Once again, these numbers aren't in the construction approval because this is something the city will be doing on our own, but it is in the overall project cost. Here's a picture of the dais that I was speaking about. And then the back wall here, this is where we're looking to have the stacked stone. So this room is it's a multi-purpose room. So in addition to being the courtroom for the one day a week or so that they're using. It's also going to be our Emergency Operations Center, and it's also going to be a training room and a community room that people could come and use. We do think that this room will be a center point, and we did like the additional accent on the wall. Our original design was to have that, but as I said, you know, as we started looking at costs and thinking we were close, we did pull that out. So here's a comparison of the two budgets. So back in November 20th of 2018, as I noted on that 5-3 vote, the council did look at the $11.747 million overall project. So the biggest difference now, as we're looking at the cost, comes strictly down to the bid for the construction. Back then, we were estimating at 7.8, and our actual cost, as I mentioned, came in at, you know, the 6.7, and then we're also looking to add in the 70,000 of the alternates and then the 125 for the direct purchases. One of the other numbers that went down was the contingency, because that's 5% of the construction costs. So with the lower construction costs, that also did change. Our soft costs at 890,000 stayed the same. The land acquisition, parking lot, and site modifications also stayed the same. Another place where we saw changes now is when it comes to how we're going to finance the project. So we were originally looking at debt of $10.6 million based on the $11.7 million budget, with the actual cost coming in. And there's a couple items listed below, but our debt that we're going to be borrowing for is now at $9.2 million. So the court did note that they saw a reduction in cost. So based on the original estimate, they were looking at $635,000. That is now reduced down to $490,000. That's strictly on the construction costs. Tech fund, that's an oversizing of the IT room that's going to be in this facility. Right now, IT is handled in a couple different areas, and the space here is not adequate for it. It does have its issues, so it's going to get built slightly larger in order to hold all of the city's IT. We also talked with the different departments as to things that they're going to be looking at in the future, and I know that Joe from the electric utility had come up with quite a few things that potentially could be happening that we would need additional space for the IT in that building. So that's what those costs are. So the cash funding, so one of the things that we're able to do is we're now able to cash fund both the contingency and the parking lot costs, where initially we were only looking at being able to cash fund the contingency. The change there is, one, we've received more impact fees over the past year, and then the other is the sale of city property. We had two pieces of property that were in the works, but had not yet been completed. So at that time, we didn't include those funds in as part of our numbers back then. We're now able to do that, and that was the sale of the right-of-way at Rockwell Street, and also the former YMCA. So our overall total financing has gone from 11.7 down to 10.7. So that does provide a positive impact on the average house value, which is $245,000. So back in November of 18, we were looking at about an $81 per house annual cost with the debt financing. Now with the better construction number, we're looking at 67. Here we go. Mr. Weimer was up talking about Lake Country Municipal Court. They've been a very active partner throughout the process. They were involved in the space needs study in 2017. We've always felt strongly that the court should be with the police because of potential issues. And because of that, they had their administrative committee in August of 2018 look at this based on those earlier estimated costs. And at that time, all 20 communities were present, and it was a unanimous vote to move forward with it, which allowed us to then come to council and assure them that the Lake Country Municipal Court would be part of it, because they are part of the financing number that we've seen. So then with the newer cost, we provided that to them, and just 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, they had 16 of the 20 communities present when the took their vote, and once again, that was unanimous. Their cost, as I mentioned, is down to about $491,000 for the construction part of it, and their payment is, annual cost is $48,000, which includes $34,000 for the debt, and for their dedicated space. This is all just a rent lease payment. And then we looked at estimated annual operation cost of $13,000. That number is based on what we're seeing for actual costs within this facility, and that would be looked at on an annual basis, and they would be charged accordingly. Here's a picture of the multi-purpose room with the chairs in it, to give you an idea of how it would look. The 3 areas over here, these are storage rooms. One of them would be dedicated to the court, and they could keep podiums or video monitors or anything, tables that they would have. The other 2 would be used by the city. One would be for storing tables that aren't in this picture. And then also, this room is going to be our emergency operations center. So if a major incident were to take place in the city, this is where the department heads and the different tasks of people would go and have communications and be able to manage the event from this area. So as a summary, this has been a multi-year process. We're looking at this building will easily be a 25-year building, just like me, a 25-year employee. Oh. See, it goes fast. It was like I just got hired yesterday, folks. Be here before we know it. So the reuse of the existing building, as I noted, we have an estimated savings, because of that, of $2 million. Listed is the 4 items that we had removed back when we were in November that led to the reduction down to the $11.2 million project estimate. The parking lot was part of that, but since I got it added back in, it's not shown. But I think, the big thing that is also helping, as I noticed, is property sales of the $531,000. So with the site, based on the vote back in November of 2018 of moving forward with the construction drawings and the purchase and everything. So we have $55,000 in property taxes, $55,000 in short-term interest, FGM. Their total contract is the $480,000 shown in the soft cost, but their portion through the bidding process is $384,000. And then we've done some testing, some mold, asbestos, borings, and that sort of thing. So that's $27,000. So to date, we've expended $521,000 on that site based on having that become our next police facility. So our next step is we're recommending award of the construction, looking for construction to start as early as October of this year. Contractor is looking to be able to get in. This project is favorable in the fact that it is an existing building, so that they're able to work through the winter. Staff would begin the direct purchasing. We'd start incorporating the site improvements and the parking lot reconstruction into our 2020 bid documents, and we would look for project completion in November of 2020. That's the end of my presentation. I will answer one of the questions that did come up. The bid does include complete replacement of the roof.
Thank you, Mark. Before we proceed, I'd like to get a motion on the resolution for construction bid award and downward revised estimated project budget for the new public safety building. Do we have a motion on this resolution?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the resolution.
We have a second.
Do you need a dollar number on that?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, let's open it up for discussion. Kevin?
The $490,000, that is the court cost, they're gonna pay that? Is that, did I hear that right?
Yes, that's correct.
It's in the final numbers of the 10.7, or is that 490,000 minus?
So that is factored in there, so I will. So that's part of the revenue sourcing that's going towards the total 10.7 million. So we've broken out that portion of their cost that was important to us. That's why we had gone to them and had their administrative committee vote on this back a year ago so that we were assured that they would be moving, so that they could be figured into our financing. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, our debt is only 9.2, because they are paying that cost.
So our debt, I know I'm kind of saying what you just said, but our debt is 9.2,
Correct.
not 10.7.
Correct.
Matt?
Well, I guess I'll start the fun. First, somebody said something, and we were told this back in 2018, that nothing gets cheaper by waiting. That turns out not to be true, that we actually, by waiting and not voting on this in November of 2018, as we were told, things were going to get more expensive, did not get more expensive. It actually got cheaper by quite a bit. But that leads into a very interesting discussion we started in the conference room about the Lake Country Municipal Court. What we had now learned just a few minutes ago is that the lease does not include the cost of the building, which is $2 million, or the parking lot. That's correct? It's just the square footage cost for the build-out, is their lease payment?
So, yeah, there are two components to that. And this is the same methodology that was used when the $635,000 figure was arrived at last year, but it was looking at their square footage of their administration area, the square footage that they were with their bench area, the dais in the community room, the square footage for that. And then we looked at the construction cost, and then the financing cost was added into that. And then we also then calculated what we were looking at a per square foot cost of the utilities. So in addition to the area that is the hard space that they're dedicated costs to, there's also common areas, hallways, restrooms, things like that. The entire community room that we looked at based on a common use and determined what their portion of the utilities and everything would be, and that's the $13,000 of that.
So I'm still a little confused by a couple things. In the PowerPoint, I see the court's requested space will increase from 2,400. I'm going to just estimate for ease, from 2,400 to 5,700, but that they're only being charged essentially for the dedicated court space of 2,600. Where does the extra 2,500 or so come into place?
Which one are you?
That one. PowerPoint. Yeah, it says court's requested space will increase from 2,400 to 5,700. What does that mean?
That space includes the dedicated office spaces plus their portion of the community room. So they don't pay 100% of the community room. We looked at the percentage of time that they'd be using that room for court purposes and did an allocation based on that.
Why are we not charging them for the building as well as part of the lease? Why was that not done? What about the parking lot? I mean, they're using parts of the parking lot too, right?
When we originally looked at this earlier in the year, when we were looking at construction cost estimates, we had used the construction cost estimate of the building at that time. In this building, they do not pay lease payments on the parking lot here. So that would be a consistent methodology in that regard. So we just updated the methodology that we had looked at previous in the year.
Has the municipal court approved this lower estimation of 490 from the 635, like
Yes.
this week?
Last
week.
Thursday.
And I'm very uncomfortable with those numbers for the late. I mean, I'm uncomfortable with a lot of stuff on this project. I have been for years. This is one that's really stood out to me in the last couple days as I've really crunched the numbers. If you look across from the dedicated court space, you also see 3 pretrial rooms. I think it's pretrial rooms?
Correct.
Okay. Are they being charged for that space?
So that's part of the common space that goes in that 5,700 number.
Okay.
But
So
those are also available for use by our police department.
I understand. Well, I'll get to that other side later, and I'll cede the floor to someone else and then come back to some of my other points in a few minutes. But we have a lot of interview rooms and conference rooms on the police side. We also have 3 pretrial rooms on this side. But those are common, and so they're not being charged for that?
They're being charged for the utilities and the maintenance on the per square foot, but they're not being charged on the construction side.
So we're building 3 pretrial rooms, but we're not charging them for that.
because they are common space versus dedicated. You know, any of the space, their administrative area and the bench area within the community room, which is dedicated strictly to them, is what they are paying on.
Yeah, the problem here is their percentage of what they're paying has been reduced significantly. So this is part of what we're trying to figure out, right, with this project. Because if the courts don't come, the costs increase significantly. They were, originally, it was 635,000, that's now down to 490. That's a reduction of about $144,510. That's a 22% decrease in their lease payment, even though the project construction costs only went down about 10%. So why are they going down so much further than what we're paying as a city resident?
So their original number was based on $250 a square foot. That was one of the original numbers that rolled out when we were talking with the council and we were looking at the different cost estimates for the building. As we knew then, you know, and that was the architect's number. So they were throwing out a very conservative number when we were originally talking the budgets. So as we were refining those numbers, we never refined the numbers for the court. We had left them at the $250 a square foot. Now that we have the actual cost in, we're looking at $185 a square foot. And so that's why that changed. So that 250 number could have dropped down to about 210, as we had done with some of our other spaces when we were refining the design and the cost estimates. But we did not make that adjustment midway as we had with our other numbers.
Here's the deal. The Lake Country Municipal Court, and we can talk around these numbers and how we got there. I'm not comfortable with the reduction. It's a very significant reduction from what they originally thought they were going to pay. They're not paying for a significant amount of use of other space, and that's not being paid and built by the other 19 communities. That's being paid and built by us here in the city of Oconomowoc. So they're using the parking lot that we're going to spend probably over $500,000 on. They're using all the common space that we probably don't need. And they're not paying for that other than to keep the lights on and keep the heat on. And for parts of a community room that they're going to actually take about a third of that community room with the dais that can no longer be used. When that community room was proposed, one of the reasons we were told we needed such a large community space was we were going to use that for training. Now, with the inclusion, and this is brand new, this is the first time I've seen it when we got these documents of this massive dais that's also going to cost $63,000. That can't be moved. There's going to be no jujitsu or training or gun training or anything going on there. That is an unusable space for the city, permanently unusable space until the courts leave in 20 years. So I have significant heartache. I'm going to stop on the Lake Country Municipal Court. I'll let someone else take the floor. Here's the other problem with everything we've been shown. I don't have square footages on any of this stuff. You guys want us to vote on a $10 million project. I have this document. There's not square footages anywhere in here. We've been given no document that shows us the square footage. I have an old document from last year that shows the square footage, but it's completely changed. I also don't know what the square footage numbers are for some of these spaces, so I have no way to estimate what we're spending on, for instance, 3 conference rooms. Or, I don't know, at this point, we've got about 8 or 9 separate interview rooms across this building. How much is that really costing us? What's our 520 fitness room? And I'm gonna meander. The fitness room, at least initially in the 2018 documents, was 525 square feet. I don't know what it is now because the document we're shown that we have to vote on does not have a square footage in it. I have no idea what the square footage is. We were told we don't have the square footages of this drawing. So we have no way to estimate what we're really paying, what we're really charging. I think we're giving the Lake Country Municipal Court a sweetheart deal, and that's being put on the back of the taxpayers in the city of Oconomowoc. I'll cede my time for now, and I'll be coming back. I have much more.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Lou.
Matt, you bring up a lot of valid concerns about cost. I'm sure we'll continue on with that. One of the issues that I have with this project, and I've mentioned from the very beginning and continue to have, and nobody's been able to answer this to me satisfactorily, is we're looking to put a 40,000 square foot municipal building on water frontage for the next 25 years minimum. And it does go by quick, but in the last 25 years, I've had 4 kids and built a family, and the community has continued to grow, and it changes. And the East Wisconsin corridor is an area of economic redevelopment, and we start to see it with Mantra. going in. We see it with Twisted Fire. When we started talking about this, those items weren't really part of the economic redevelopment that was going on in East Wisconsin. The market is doing some great things there, and we're about to put a 40,000 square foot municipal building on the waterfront that doesn't really play to the reactivation of what can happen there. We have seen investment in other areas of the city that actually brings people in to spend money and build value. Community center, the shared parking lot with a bank to allow for people to park and enjoy the events. And this is not providing that kind of value in that area. I will continue to struggle with the location. The location matters, and the location, as you mentioned, was evaluated in multiple places within our community. And how we ended up on the waterfront with a service building is going to be something that I have lost sleep over. That doesn't really matter, but because I've been trying to figure out where that value comes from. And I'd rather see it out on the Summit Avenue corridor, out toward where we have a lot more residential growth, on the 94 corridor, where we see a lot of activity going on, and where we have property that is available and could be negotiated to build a better overall position for that development and for the city. So just on location alone, I've struggled with it. I'm not going to support it for that reason. Location was driven by the four walls staying up, which is 40,000 square feet, which drives the Lake Country Municipal Court into that building to help fill that space. The sizing of a lot of that item, of the items associated with what is going in there, is designed around filling that space. 10,000 square feet of indoor parking is associated with that, which I believe is excessive. We were shown additional public safety buildings, the Milton being one, Hartford being another. Hartford was much more in line with what I thought this community is about, being more multifunctional, smaller indoor parking, more efficient, and we're taking advantage of the four walls as opposed to what we could and should be looking at in efficiencies in the space. So I'll yield my time to others to continue on, and I'll keep adding in.
Charlie?
Yeah, I'm going to support this project, and location is one of the bigger reasons why I think this is the best spot for that. The Century Building used to be there, and it sat empty for quite a few years, lots of years. If a developer was really going to be serious about putting a development on that waterfront property, it should have happened, and it did not. I think this is the best use for that building as it stands, and it saves the city money by using that building. I think it's a great spot for it. I think it's going to look really good there, and that's one of the reasons I'm going to support this.
Kevin, did you have a comment? You looked at me, I thought maybe you had a comment.
I'm good.
Who, me, or?
No, Kevin did.
Oh.
Lou.
You can count on me, Mayor.
I know, you'll be, if someone's talking, I'll just look at you.
Charlie, it's a great point that sat empty for a long time. And it sat empty for a long time because we had a property owner that wasn't really motivated to do anything with that particular piece. And it was actually on their books to help with a loss. And when it was on the market, it wasn't on the market for sale, it was on the market for lease. And if anything, I would consider our purchase of that property, the correction of that, and the positioning of that property to move forward to reflect the redevelopment of that East Wisconsin corridor that could and should move forward with private development as opposed to a city building.
Charlie?
And I think if a developer really wanted to put something there and offered them the money, it's kind of like in anything. It may not be for sale, but trust me, everything is for sale for the right amount of money. If a developer wanted to put something there, they would have offered it, and the previous owner would have taken that. Probably would have been more than what the city offered.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Matt.
I don't want to get into that fray. Look, we bought the building, we got to figure out what we're going to do with it. I don't think ultimately putting the police station there is the right idea. And partly it's because of what's been presented. First of all, we have no bid doc, so I have no idea what's being bid on. There's a lot of questions I still have, and I want to run through some of those questions quickly, just so people that are watching, people that are here understand what we go through to figure this out. Do we have this document on the PowerPoint? Is this in, so that people can look at it while we're talking about it? Or maybe the architect has it. Does he have it? Yeah, with the tables in it and, you know, the bathrooms and stuff laid out. Yeah, it's hard to see. But, I mean, this is the one I want to first talk about. In this one, we don't have how many car spaces, bike storage, but what are we doing with all that? In the previous document, we had significant amount of seized bike cages, we had boat storage, motorcycle parking, and then I think a total of 16 or 17 spaces. Where are we at? How many spaces are we approving for indoor parking? Do we know that number?
17.
You want to bring the architect up? I mean, if they have the answers.
Yeah, if he can answer,
got
that'd
the
be great too.
answers.
Yeah, if he knows it, he designed it, right?
Yes, the space is stated 17 from schematic into the construction docs.
And how many vehicles total, does anybody know how many vehicles total we have currently in the city for squads?
Currently we have 9 squads, 1 motorcycle.
Okay, so right there, I understand that we're trying to build something that's going to be usable for the future as well, but that's a lot of extra space, and I think that's something we should consider. When you look at the schematic design, and maybe it's hard to see, and the copy we were given too is also kind of hard to look at. But if you start in the upper left-hand corner there, you've got a breakfast area. Do we know what the square footage of that is? In the original plan, it was 300.
I can get that for you right now.
Do you have that? Yeah, that'd be great. I'd like to know that.
All right, so the break room is 470 square feet.
So originally it was, in the first plan that we approved for the estimate, at the estimate time, it was 300 square feet. Now it's 470.
It's 470.
What about the workout room? Originally in the last plan, at least the plan that we approved for the estimation, the bid documents, that was 525. What's it at now?
530.
Now, we also got a bunch of other rooms, and maybe you can identify these for me, because I don't know what they are when I look at them. Right underneath the break room, looks like 3 people sitting in there. Is that an office?
That's field training office.
What about the 2 rooms across with the large tables? Are those conference rooms? What are
The
those?
roll call room and a major case conference room.
What about right underneath the roll call room? What is that space?
Investigations.
And
Or,
what about?
Sorry, underneath roll call is report writing and ICAC.
Okay. What about underneath that? Is that another interview room?
Yes,
And then across from that, on the corner there, another interview room?
across from,
Yeah, so go ahead and yeah, now move that to the right there, another interview room?
that's an interview room. Those are 2 soft interview rooms.
No, I'd like you to move down then, that little hallway. There's 2 other, looks like interview rooms?
Which way?
Down the hall, yeah, straight down the hallway, I'm sorry. I'm trying to direct you, because it doesn't tell us what it is. So what are these interview rooms too, to the left of your cursor?
Room 164.
Yeah, you got better eyes than I do.
Different ceramic.
164 is a soft interview.
And underneath that?
Captain?
That's a captain's office space?
Yes.
We also have a lot of record retention rooms. We have, it looks like we have a copy room, we have records,
Yes.
we have another record storage, we have another file storage, and we have another conference room. Is that correct?
Yes.
How big is that lower conference room?
The one in the,
Underneath the
in
record?
office corridor?
Yeah, underneath the record storage.
Can you point to that, please?
428 square feet, that conference room right there.
428 square feet. What about dispatch? How big is dispatch?
Dispatch is 574 square feet.
Do you know how many people we have working in dispatch at any given time?
Chief?
There's also, when I go over to the court space, it looks like we've got 3 pretrial conference rooms as well, up when you move over to the court side, so the court's quarter of the building.
1, 2, 3 right here.
Yeah, those are other interview rooms or pretrial rooms that can be used, correct?
Those are pretrial rooms that can be used as citizen report rooms. So when somebody's not in custody and they want to come in and make a complaint or something like that, they go into a citizen report room.
And then when we go to the court side, we have another break room, looks like, up in the right-hand corner above the judge,
Yes, that's part of their dedicated space.
right? And then they have another bathroom to themselves as well, right?
Yes.
Do you have any idea how much space this dais takes up? I
Um,
mean, it looks about a third, maybe a quarter of the space of that room.
No, it's at most a fifth of the space.
Okay.
I have that on another document. The
You know how
exact
big,
square
well,
footage.
just a fifth is a good estimate. I'll run with that. How big is the,
Just under 2,300 square feet.
so the reason I asked a lot of these questions was I think it should be obvious to anyone watching on YouTube or that's here in person. We have a lot of space that's not, as Lou said, not being used efficiently. We have a tremendous amount of space that's just basically duplicate space. Break rooms, conference rooms, multiple break rooms, and insignificant amount of space for nobody. We have an extra 9, 10 parking spaces. You don't need 250 or 190 square foot space to park a boat. That boat could be taken to Duck House and, probably done for $200 or $300 for a season. What I'm saying is, and I think it should be obvious to anyone watching, there's way too much space in this building. This stuff is never going to get used, in my estimation. And if it is, it's a long, long ways away. And we're paying for space that we're not always going to be using, that the courts are going to be using, and they're, I don't believe, paying for it. I have a couple other quick points. One of the questions I've had since day one was the security fencing around the outdoor parking. Do we have a cost estimate for that?
That's included in that 100,000. I don't have a broken.
Is that
out
the
cost.
site improvements?
Yes.
Okay, so that answers 2 questions in one. We're making progress. So the site improvements includes the fencing and gating around the private vehicles of the court staff and the city staff?
Yes.
What else does that include, do we know?
It includes landscaping. It includes some of the hardscaping, flag poles.
But that hasn't been estimated, right? That's not out for bid yet? We don't know what
Been
that's all.
estimated, it hasn't been.
Right.
Bid. No.
There's no bid yet, okay. What we were told in some of the document, thank you, I appreciate your help, I appreciate you. I don't have anything else for you right now, sir.
Actually, I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
On the court section, that, where they're sitting,
Here?
is that a safety security wall? Or
Right, are you talking about this wall right here?
where the judge will be sitting?
Here?
Yeah,
Yes,
What
that's
type of wall is
it's a
that?
Kevlar reinforced wall.
so it's safety and
Yes.
secure. Okay, all right, okay.
Do we know when the debt ends on our community center project? I asked this a while back,
Yeah.
I can never remember. Is it
I always have to
2030?
look it up.
No, I think it's like 2030.
I think
You know
it's
it off the top of your
2030.
head, Lori.
Like 10 or 12 years.
Sorry.
I think it's 2030.
And this is a more functional, this is more financially functional. Because what I'd like to do is if this passes tonight, I want to make sure that there's least an impact on the city taxpayer moving forward as possible. I think we've done a good job by reducing, and I appreciate that. I'm going to vote against all the alternatives except for the hard surface flooring. I think all the rest of the alternatives are a cost we shouldn't have to
You
spend.
talking about the drain or the hard surface?
Well, the drain I could talk about, there's a hard surface space, I think, where they're probably moving stuff that's, would it be carpet or something, or vinyl to tile?
No, there was hard surface on the countertops.
Oh, hard surface on the
Instead of laminate,
countertops.
they
Oh,
would do,
okay.
hard surface. The other thing was the floor drain,
Those are the two I would be okay with, I
and
think,
the
as
other
far
one
as.
was the brick wall on the back. of
Yeah, the brick walls, that's a brick wall for the court that we don't need to spend money on. But I'd like to keep the cost of the taxpayer and the debt as limited as possible if it passes. So is there a way that we can earmark, we've got pilot funds coming in from Town or Crest starting next year. That's about 310,000, I think.
We will not probably realize that full amount in 2021 because you got to remember the timing of it. But the estimate was in that neighborhood. I don't remember the exact figure for the pilot payment estimate, but I believe you're in that neighborhood.
In my understanding from our pilot, and we also have the Mandel project we just passed,
Right.
which should realize another 340,000 or so in city taxes. What I would like us to do is seriously consider figuring out a way not to spend that money. If this passes tonight, which I hope it doesn't, but if it does pass, we need to figure out as a city a way to keep our belt tight, which I said a year and a half ago when we started looking at this project. And you try to use some of those funds coming in for some of that debt service so that we can try to limit the cost per the folks. So it's figuring out a way in budgets moving forward, somehow earmarking that money as it comes in or using that money towards some of the debt financing if it's possible, instead of just putting it back into the general fund and spending it, which I think is what we would normally do, is we would just put it in the general fund, spend it, and keep the 9 million on debt, which I think is not good policy, especially with new projects coming in.
I think one of the things that the finance director is gonna be looking at, after the budget is approved is ways to feather in these things so that it does not affect the taxpayer as much. And there's certain ways that you can do it where you, pay more interest and less principal initially and then just kind of float it in there. There will be an increase, but it won't be a significant increase.
Yeah, and Lori, maybe this is a question for you, if I may, Mayor. I think we were gonna try to bring the debt, we were gonna do part of the financing, again, we proposed this a year ago, but we were gonna do some of the financing, half the financing right away, and then the other half the next year? Is that still the plan?
At this point, no, that's not the plan anymore.
Okay, we're going straight into the debt funding for the whole 9 million. So we're going straight into the 254 house, paying, $67 more a year.
And what is the reason for that? To do it all at once, there's a reason for that.
Sure. The first time we were looking at splitting that, I was looking at splitting those dollars because it was, when we first talked about it, it was over $10 million, which is, if you borrow more than $10 million in a year, it can raise your interest costs. So I was trying to split that. It was also projected to be over 2 years that we were working on this as well. We can split it if that makes you more comfortable, but what I'd really like to do at this point, and we talked about this a little bit earlier when we were talking about capital projects. I'm recommending that you pay interest only for next year so that we can get back together after we put the budget together. We're looking at our full 5-year capital plan. We're looking at how we're gonna structure debt in the future. And I have, this is maybe an example. I'm not sure this is a great example, but it does show you where some of your debt falls off. These are our current debt payments that go out to 2031. The community center goes out the longest. But we have debt that falls off in 2022, a lot of it actually in 2024.
Yeah, it's not that very long.
So when we start to feather new debt in, this is an extreme example because this is just interest, and it keeps it kind of at the rate we're at right now. So when we take a look at this later, we start to look at, how are we feeling about interest versus principal, how long we want to take it out, how do we want that to affect the mill rate. Basically, you take the borrowings for the few years and you put the principal payments in there and the interest in there where the council is comfortable in what the mill rate is and what that interest rate cost is, that trade-off. And that's what we'll be talking about after the budget. But currently, I'm thinking that since this is a $9 million borrowing, I'd like to borrow it at one time. I'd like to do interest only because by the time we get our 5-year capital plan together, that second year is gonna be here. They're gonna be on top of each other. It's gonna be interest only for the first year anyway.
Isn't it more expensive to borrow over 2 years as well?
Well,
To
yeah,
split
it
the borrowing,
depends.
yeah.
Currently, we're planning on borrowing again the next year anyway, so we would have the same borrowing costs.
Okay.
Okay? So when we were looking at that, when I show you what's the mill rate on this, I'm looking at this issue all by itself in a straight line amortization of that debt. So basically, it's worst-case scenario. If we were gonna actually just do it straight up over 20 years and put that mill rate right on the city, that's the worst-case scenario. Or it's that cost of that debt. How much does it cost a person? But we are gonna feather that into what we currently have and mitigate that effect on the mill rate to a level that the council is comfortable with.
Kevin?
Couple of things, thank you very much. A couple of things that, I have a question, no, up,
No,
yeah. So you're saying that the 9 million, for the most part, you wanted to pay interest only, you're recommending that?
For 2020, yes.
Okay.
Until we put our plan together.
The only concern I have with that is then we still owe the 9 million. And the problem with that is, ultimately, that goes back to the taxpayer. Now, what's going to happen is that not 9 million is now going to become much more than 9 million because we would have paid out much more than that. Then consider that next year, or the year after, or 5 years from now, there's going to be more projects. So what's going to happen here is now that 9 million is going to be compounded because there's going to be other things. Now, what concerns me is the fact that if that does happen, we're still going to owe the 9 million. So I do have a problem with you stating that interest only for 1 year, 2 years, or 5 years. I think if it passes and, that we need to begin the process of reducing that, either through, other types of funding that could be available or some other mode, okay? But interest only, I would never vote for that.
Understand, yeah,
would
I
never
understand, and
vote
I
for
think that when we are ready to borrow for that, that's exactly what we will do. We'll sit down and we'll figure out how do you want to structure that debt? So there's going to be people that are interest adverse. There's going to be other people that are mill rate adverse. So we're going to have to come together and figure out what's the best solution for the city.
And I'll say this because now,
What
I
if you're
said to
both
myself,
averse?
I'll say this. There are a lot of cities out there that for years have gone interest only with a lot of their debt. And now it's come that they need to pay that, and guess what? They can't. I don't want Oconomowoc to be one of those cities. I will never, ever vote for interest only. It will not happen.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, we will bring that back to the council with options, and then the council can decide the ultimate structure.
Do not make that one of the options.
Well, it's got to be one of the options. 'Cause
It will
you're-
be one of the
it has
options
to be an
presented.
option. You don't have to like it, but it's got to be one of the options.
I don't like it either.
Well, so it's already got 2 votes against it.
It really just depends on how you want to structure it.
Yep.
And since we were making a decision on debt structuring for the next 5 years of borrowing, my recommendation was to do interest only in the first year so that we can make sure that we're structuring that properly. But it doesn't have to be that way. And we don't have to decide that tonight. Because
You'd have
when
a
we
plan in
decide what that
place.
amount's going to be, then the financial advisor will come in and work through several scenarios with us.
We should have a plan in place before we strike, period. We shouldn't put the cart before the horse. If anything happens tonight, we need to know what the plan is, not think about this after we approve the budget. That should already be in the talks.
Okay, so when, in Mark's slides, that's why we put in there what the total cost would be. And so, if we were to pay that off, over 20 years, straight line, the slide that is in your handout is what that cost would be. So, yeah, somewhere between there and interest only is where you're probably going to end up.
Excellent.
Okay?
Thank you.
Anything else?
Any other comments? Go ahead, Lou.
Matt has done a good job reviewing room by room the lack of efficiency in some of those areas. We didn't really talk about the garage in regards to actual square footage and the amount of space that this building is being consumed with for that garage, 7,843. So almost 8,000 square feet for indoor parking. Out of that, 420 square feet for bikes. Heated, secured space that could be put over at the, anywhere, outside, gated. It doesn't need to be inside, it doesn't need to be 420 square feet, in my opinion. There may be some other opinions that I'm more than happy to hear.
We take in approximately 100 bikes a year. We keep them for safekeeping. People eventually come and get their bikes, collect their bikes. That's why we keep them inside. We talk about efficiencies. You have your bikes like you currently have now at a different location. An officer has to go there, take the bike there, inventory the bike, come back, do the paperwork on the bike. When a person comes to pick up their bike, we have to go out to that location, get the bike, release the bike to that person. So when we talk about efficiencies, Lou, that's how we're trying to bring everything in-house. I mean, 20 by 20 area is not that big for bike storage when you collect about 100 bikes a year.
Understood and appreciated. But if you add all that together, we have almost 10,000 square feet between evidence garage, bike storage, garage itself, storage, which is right along the lake. So we got 10,000 square feet of parking on the lake.
Well, it's not just parking, because you're also talking the armory is in there as well.
Sure.
Equipment storage along those lines as well. And we talk about evidence. Evidence is very important in the police department. As state statutes change, we're required to keep so much more evidence on hand for an indefinite period of time until the person passes away, is released from incarceration, probation, or parole. That's why we need the room for the evidence storage.
All of it is extremely important, and I'm not trying to take anything away from the importance of what that space is, but having that space, again, location-wise, right on the waterfront, I struggle with it because that space cleaned up could be a walkable space. It could be the start of community coming together in that area.
You're right, it's walkable space, because as these guys can tell you, you can almost walk across the lake right there. We've chased people out there in the middle of summer and the water's waist deep and they just stand there. So, I mean, yeah, there's water there and it's waterfront, Lou, and you could put a walkway behind the police station, but in the end, you know, we had the slides up last year and it's still nothing more than a backwash.
So the people on the other side of that backwash who have waterfront and are being taxed with waterfront property, you're gonna tell them that's not really valuable? There's only so much water frontage in this community, and the water frontage that consists of Fowler and LaBelle help define this community.
But that is where the riverbed flows through on the other side.
Absolutely. I've kayaked
And
through there.
that's where the backwash settles and all the silt settles behind Sentry.
I've kayaked through there. It's beautiful. Cleaning that area up, reactivating that area for the community, making again, I'm not suggesting that the police department and the public safety building isn't an incredibly important part of this community, but where it's located and what it does to where it is, we're not gonna be able to come back and redo this. And again, I have 4 kids, we have families, we have the beginning of a reactivation of that corridor, and hopefully more as we continue to focus on it.
But won't a new public safety facility add to that?
I would say no. And the reason I would say no, that it wouldn't reactivate, that a public safety building wouldn't activate economic development in that area is there's no retail, there's no cash registers, there is nothing that draws to that area with the exception of I gotta pay my ticket, I have something going on in my life and I need the help of the police in that area. It's an incredibly valuable service that we provide our community, but it doesn't have to be there to do that. again, location matters. The location of the community center matters, and that is right on the lake. And there was a lot of debate about where that was going to go. We are filling a 40,000 square foot footprint. It doesn't have to be 40,000 square, it doesn't have to be 8,000 square feet of parking. It doesn't have to be 470 square feet of break room in that back left corner. But we can't shrink it because we're constrained to those four walls. And I know we've had this discussion, that square footage costs us money. It'll cost us money in operation. It'll cost us money in renovation. And it's not a 1, 2, 3, 5-year deal. It's a 25+ year deal. And again, I haven't heard why there, other than the building has sat vacant because it had an unmotivated seller, and now we have an area that is seeing economic redevelopment, and we've potentially corrected that unmotivated seller issue if we look at a different location.
Harry, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just want to step in for the chief. You know, the debate and the issues are very valid, and the council has been through that debate. Ultimately, in November of last year, the council gave direction and approved the schematic design with the square footages, essentially, of the spaces that are in there, and approved the location and set the project budget. So that's what we're bringing back. So I don't want, I don't want to put chief on the spot on why it's that location, because ultimately it was the council that evaluated a number of sites and chose this location, and that's the project we're bringing back to you.
Kevin?
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it.
Can I sit
Yeah.
down?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I do have a question, though, about census. And who would I go to talk about the population?
Diane would know about census.
Diane. Hi, Diane.
Oh.
Okay.
Don't talk to me, I
So,
don't have no sense.
25 years ago, what was our population count here?
25 years ago?
Yeah,
Bring that up.
plus or minus.
We were under 10. I
Yeah,
can't
it was
comment
ni-
beyond
You could
that.
ask me, because it was about
Yeah.
9,000.
9,000?
Yeah.
Okay, you were about 60 then, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep going.
What do you want?
Okay, so in 25 years ago, we were about 9,000, and what are we today?
Just under 17.
Okay, so there is
City
roughly,
has doubled in size in 25 years,
it's doubled in size.
pretty much.
Okay, so I won't go with that figure, but I do know, I was reading the Wall Street Journal the other day. I've started reading that now, much more. It's pretty informative. And it talked about migration to west. A lot of people are migrating from the east to the west. And at the growth rate that we have at this point, can I say that in 25 years, we can potentially have 10,000 more people living in this city?
Mm-mm.
Conservatively?
Yeah, probably 25, 28,000 people total.
Okay. So let's assume we have 28,000 people, 24,000, 25,000 people. Are we going to need a bigger police force?
Any other comments? Mr. Stray?
Mr. Strage lives in LaBelle Cemetery over here, guys, so.
You'll do then.
I'll do then, okay. Anyway, I just have a couple of comments. You know, we wouldn't be sitting here today if you guys would have liked my idea of the old Yamka Hotel, the YMCA, which I thought that would be the perfect spot for the police department. Fought a good battle, but I didn't win that one. Kevin, I do believe you in that interest loan. That's a dumb loan because the banks have enough money in their banks. As far as the Eastern Corridor is concerned, I have a problem with that thing going too much further. Lou talked about the two restaurants. The restaurants were there. You know, you can't even keep a Colonel Sanders around. That's kind of a tough situation there. And as far as the back of the police station there, if you go about 2 clicks to the east, those properties are, it's all dump. When I was a kid, those were dumps being filled in there, so I don't animosity for you guys to jump in the water there, for crying out loud. So, yeah, I don't see too much room out there, except for, Lalaberg sometime. That'll probably be some apartment buildings and that, and I really appreciate your 3 officers sitting in, because they have their badge, their American flags on their right way, not like the chief. I always like that. And I like, I will be supporting this, I will, and I think maybe I should be in that workout room, because that's a perfect place for me, because there's no apparatus for me to do anything in there, so.
Eric, you had your hand up?
Yeah, that's a tough act to
You can't
follow for
talk, you
sure.
can't talk.
That gonna work. Anyway, I'd like to address, I'm very torn on this because I think it's bigger than it needs to be, for sure. But our police department, has been waiting a long time for something like this. I was hoping that it wouldn't be this large, but there's some things I still don't like about the design. One of them the gentleman brought up is there's no second door, which coincides with something I had a problem with earlier, with the impound lot being right on the lakefront. I thought maybe that could be off to the side where a second exit could be, which now makes sense. Anyway, and I also don't like the security fencing. I think it'll look tacky on a public building. I don't think it's necessary if we have cameras to protect our employees' cars. Nobody else has their cars protected with security fencing. I think the Sallyport entrance will serve anything that's needed to get people that are under arrest in and out. I wish the workout room was designed so all city employees could use it. I don't believe they can get access to that. I think if we're gonna have a workout facility, it shouldn't just be for people who work at the police station. So I'd like to, and also, as Matt brought up earlier, I don't believe the court is paying for as much space as there is gonna be dedicated to them with the conference rooms and the Dias up front, is that how it's called? Anyway, I think they have more space that they're gonna use that nobody else is gonna use. I certainly think there's plenty of conference rooms throughout the police station that they're not gonna need more of them. They have more conference rooms than police officers on staff by the looks of it in this building. There's plenty of bathroom space. I think I count 17 places you can do your business throughout this building, which is probably about as many people that are gonna be in that building at any given time, except on Fridays or when there's a special event. But with that being said, I guess I'd like to hear, it sounds like you want to get up here and talk about the impound lot.
I just wanted to address the one thing you said first about the garage door. So, in all the years that we've been designing these, we haven't had any catastrophic failure, as was brought up earlier. But if that's really a huge concern, if you look at the pointer right here, we could very easily turn that into a gated opening rather than a wall, and you have 2 doors in the evidence garage there that could be used in an emergency situation if that were really that big of an issue.
That's a good idea.
That's an
Very good
outstanding idea.
Where are the impound cars gonna be stored?
Chief, you want to address that?
The impound stores will be basically
Why don't you
stored
use the-
basically,
Use the pointer,
okay, where the red dot are right here.
yeah.
That's where,
That's evidence.
That's your evidence.
That's your evidence
Asking
room.
if-
Or
Impound.
outside.
oh, the impound is gonna be, I'm sorry, the impound is gonna be along the fence line along Thompson Street.
It's not gonna be along the lake.
It's not gonna be along the lake, we already decided that.
Why couldn't it be to the east of the building and have a garage door going out that way instead?
You have limited space there before you run into.
How many feet?
Your neighbor. I don't have that figure offhand right now.
I think,
I think the plan was to have the west part where it would be impound and employee parking. Along the
I
west
just
side
don't
of the
understand
building.
why we need fenced-in parking for employees. I really don't. And if the impound could be someplace where you don't have to look at them all the time, that'd be fantastic. So,
Well, we have had employees' vehicles damaged in the past in the parking lot or notes left on their vehicles. So there is a concern as far as that goes. Other police departments that we have toured, They have had secured employee parking areas.
All right.
That was a big thing with Middleton, I think, and they wanted to have all of their
It's just
it's not just employees, but dispatchers, whoever, in a secure area.
And then as far as the bathrooms go, the court is separate from the police. It's required by state law. And since we are a secure facility and they're a secure facility, they have to be kept separate.
I'm okay with you guys having your bathroom, but we've got a large public facility out front that'll probably only get used one half day a week for the most part, because I don't think a lot of people are going in and out of the police station.
Well, we have a
Maybe,
number,
maybe you have a lot of people coming in and out, but I don't know.
we have a number of people who come in to drop things off, things they've found, things, recovered animals. They come in and do police reports. They're endlessly, there's people in and out all the time. That's why
Okay.
we have the conference rooms off to the side. So we don't have to take them inside the secure facility because they don't like going behind those doors sometimes.
But I would imagine that never 3 of them being used at any given time.
That's not necessarily true. If we have a major crime, we're bringing
Okay.
witnesses and suspects in. The witnesses go in the lobby, the suspects go inside the facility.
All right.
And I think
Said
one-
my piece.
I think one thing else that's important too, the parking lot is public. So it's not just for whoever's in the police department or the courts, it's any of the stores along there, the restaurants, whatever,
In
whoever.
front, yes,
They can all park in that public parking lot, so that's a city public parking lot.
correct.
But
Well, I mean, I'm really excited that the bids came in lower than we thought, and like Matt said, waiting actually was a good thing. I don't need questions for you, Chief Berger, but thank you. No, thanks. So that's really exciting, and waiting actually did work to our benefit. But I'm still hearing a lot of questions tonight that haven't been answered, and I'm hearing some speculation on potentially looking at other sites that have potentially arisen. And I'm wondering,
That's not true.
well,
That was, one alderman said that.
I know that's true, but I've also thought of some things myself in that regards. If this fails tonight, if it would fail, where do we go from here?
Well, if it fails and we don't build there, that $521,000 that's been spent is lost.
Correct.
We'd have to sell the building, I don't know.
Can I potentially entertain a motion to table this just for 2 more meetings until some of these other questions can get answered and we feel really comfortable collectively as a council in making this very, very important decision that's probably going to be around Oconomowoc for not 25 years, probably 50 years?
Well, you're making a motion, and do we have a second?
Second.
Non-debatable.
Yep. Call the roll.
One
This is a
second,
motion to
please.
table for 2 meetings.
Or whenever.
Well, she said 2 meetings.
I'll have a motion to take it off the table next. Well, it depends on whether you put it on the agenda or not.
Yep.
But it's a motion to table.
Right. Okay, so I'll call the roll now, I'm ready.
Well,
Alderman Ro-
can I, before we vote,
You
can I,
can't debate.
as a point of
No
order?
debate.
There's no discussion.
It's not a discussion point, it's a point of order. When would the meeting be?
2 meetings from now, is what she said.
So the mayor sets the agenda, and he has indicated he'll honor the 2 meetings.
That was her request.
Okay.
Hang on. Can't say anything?
No? It's not debatable. There's no discussion. Call the vote. You gotta take this vote first. If they vote it down, then you can talk.
Alderman Rogers?
Nay.
No to table, okay. Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Alderman Shaw?
Nay.
Nay. Alderman Ellis?
Nay.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Alderman Zwart?
Nay.
Alderman Stray?
Nay.
Alderman Kavieski?
Aye.
Okay, Mark, did you have a point of order that you want, or something you wanted to bring up, or? Or is it important now, or no? Okay. It was about the contract?
In
or
30
what?
seconds,
has
go
to
back
be,
and forth a couple more times.
That's a
The
contract.
bids were only good for 45 days from bid opening on August 22nd, so 2 meetings from now would have put us out
Would've put it
past that.
past. Any other, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, just a few last minute points here. I don't think just because we've kind of gone down the road that we should continue going down the road if it's wrong. The space is obviously too large. I think I've highlighted that very clearly for everyone. Derek brought up some great points, 17 separate bathrooms. I understand that there's a few that probably have a good point, right? Like this in the Sally Port and maybe the separate bathrooms out for the court, but 17 bathrooms is a lot of bathrooms. When I count up all the vacant space in meeting rooms, I'm talking about 12 different spaces that are conference rooms, interview rooms, pretrial rooms, break rooms. That's a lot of space. And the reason it's there is because we're trying to fill that 40,000 square feet. I have extra parking spaces we may never need. And I think Kevin's point is interesting. The city of Economowoc is essentially landlocked unless we annex more space. We can't go west because that's Jefferson County. We can't go to the village because they're incorporated. The only place we can really get anything from is the town of Economowoc. And we're confined with the space we're in. So we can't add 50,000 residents. And I've made this point before. A community is not safe just because it has police officers. A lot of times a community is safe because it's a safe place to live and there's good neighbors. A police officer doesn't necessarily stop a crime the second before it happens. We need police officers, we want police officers, but we also haven't added a police officer prior to the last year for almost 25 years. So I don't necessarily agree just because we add 1,000 residents that we therefore need an extra police officer. I don't necessarily think we'll always fill the space or that we will want to fill the space. If we are filling the space, that may not be good for our community, right? I mean, so think about that. But one of the comments the mayor made about how much we've spent, I think you said 555,000 already spent.
521.
Yeah, so part of those numbers though, and I don't have it in front of me, but part of those numbers are the short-term financing. Had we started the project already, we'd be paying $335,000 a year in interest financing. So throw that 55 grand out. Part of it is lost property taxes. If we move forward with this building, we'll never have property taxes on that parcel, ever. At least as long as probably all of us are alive. So throw that number out. The engineering that was done is going to be a loss, right? If we decide to go to a different route. But just because you spend some money doesn't mean you keep moving forward with that poor decision. I do think we made the wrong decision to buy it. I voted for it to buy it, and I think that was the wrong call. It's the wrong spot. It's way too big. The WSM study, and this is kind of inside baseball, provided for things we should never have had in this building, way too much space. And one of the things Mark said, which is interesting during his presentation, well, don't worry about the workout room. It doesn't cost anything because we're not putting anything in there. It does cost something. It's $184 per square feet. That's 525 square feet. That's $96,000 for a workout room that's going to be used by 20 people. So when the taxpayers actually digest this conversation, they're going to realize we're paying tens and hundreds and millions of dollars for 12 different meeting rooms, for 17 bathrooms, for more parking space than we'll ever need potentially, and for something that I just think is going to be a Taj Mahal and potentially an albatross around our neck. So I would encourage the rest of the aldermen to vote against this tonight. I think we should go back to the drawing table and see if we can get something better in the future.
Go ahead.
To your point, Kevin, we do need a police department that handles the needs of those who serve this community better than what they have right now, without a doubt. And I would say a no vote on this isn't a vote against our officers or a validation that they don't need something new and larger of space. But this is just not the right application for that solution. They need it. I'd support it if it was a different location, different size, different. This is not the right fit. It's not the right solution. It is a solution that's in front of us, but it's not the right one.
Go ahead, Derek.
I guess, like I said before, I think this is bigger than we need, and I guess I caution, let's not fill it up just to fill it up. If it goes through, I'm really concerned that when, when somebody, I don't know if any of you guys have like a shed or a garage, but they tend to never be big enough at the end of the day, because you just keep putting stuff in there. I don't want to fill it up with employees that we don't need because it feels empty in there. I think the operating costs and the maintenance costs on this are going to be more than on a smaller facility. I just do, because of the size of it. But I do think at the end of the day, even if we built something that was 2/3 the size, which to me seems more in line, the costs are probably going to be the same at the end of the day of what we're building here. With the maintenance cost, you're right, you're correct. But I really think it's extremely large, and I'm nervous about that it's going to cost a lot more down the road. The other point is, I agree with Matt. Those are sunk costs, the $500,000 or whatever for the architectural firm and our purchase price. I think that we could probably get that back out of it. I'm not disappointed in our purchase, because I think we could probably sell it for more than we bought it for, now that the economy's better. And it doesn't have a cloud hangover. I believe there was a deed restriction or something on that place, wasn't there? No? Something about couldn't be a shop or
That was
for the lease?
That was from years before.
Okay.
That ran out.
Anyway, that's not really a concern of mine as far as selling it. I don't think it was a poor decision. I think something's good is gonna go there, whether it's the police station or something else.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Call the roll, please.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to amend the resolution first.
He can make a motion to amend the motion, yes.
Because we just have a motion as presented in the resolution, so I'd like to make several motions to amend the resolution before we move to the final version of this. And that mostly has to do with these alternatives. I think we've discussed the alternatives. I've said the alternatives I don't think are necessarily appropriate. If we're gonna do this, we should try to make it as cost efficient as possible. So what I would propose is amending the resolution, which is on page, I think, but I don't know what page it is. It's the resolution. It's on, it's the second paragraph. Now therefore be it hereby resolved, and that we take out alternative 3, 6, and whatever alternative 1 is, whether it's putting the dais in or allowing it to be put in or paying for it, we shouldn't have any dais there, because that's if it's gonna be a community room, it's supposed to be used for training, we need to keep that available.
If I could,
Yeah,
that will vitiate the lease.
okay.
Because there are state requirements related to a raised platform for a municipal court judge. So, I mean,
It doesn't have to be that big, though. It could be something movable
I don't know.
potentially. Okay.
I don't know, but I'm just telling you that if you do that, it may, I believe that there's been some kind of pledging going on or some type of promise to the municipal court to make sure that the court administrator would sign off on it. And it's bigger than just the municipal court. It's also district to courts. And they've vetted this with the district to court administrator.
Okay.
And Mike has signed off on it. So in terms of that, everybody needs to know that that may be a deal breaker on the lease.
Well, it's not part of the resolution right now, so I guess we don't really have to address it.
It's part of the base bid. The dais is in the base bid amount.
Let me start out with this first amendment, okay? Removing alternative 3 and 4. I'm sorry, removing alternative 3 and 6 from the
Can you
resolution.
bring up what these, we got it on
Yeah,
here.
I can tell you. Alternative 3 was the stone material behind the dais, which cost $13,000, and alternative 6 is side lights and doors for $7,500. We're leaving in the garage drain system, which we've been told we need, and we're leaving in the solid surface material throughout the building for efficiency and for costs moving forward.
So
That's my motion.
what are you saying, 3 and 6 are
Yeah.
removing?
I got a question in regards to the amendment.
We have to
Is there a second?
we need a second first.
Can we clarify that again? What do you,
3 and 6, the stone wall And,
He's moving to dump 3 and 6.
yeah. Pretty much
Back to
it.
the PowerPoint. There it is. It's up on the PowerPoint now.
Do we have a second? Seeing no second, that fails. And one of the questions I had on 6 was, I think was more of a safety issue with the sidelights because of concerns over offers. Do you have something, Chief? I mean, 3 is a cosmetic, 6 is a functional.
It's a functional issue. It goes to 16 different offices, so, or windows or doors that we want to have windows alongside so you can see into the room. So you can check on the person who's in the room. You can also see if that person's busy or if you can make contact with them.
Right. So 3 is more of a design issue or, aesthetics. Go ahead.
I have a question about the Dias. I just feel like we should be charging or somehow getting money for that area that we're not.
We are.
Yeah.
The dedicated court space, that 2,654 square feet that was listed in the PowerPoint, includes a portion of the community room
Okay, sorry, I
for
missed
the
that.
dais area. So
We're going to call it a bench.
Okay.
That's easier to
Yeah,
say.
sounds better.
Bench,
Bench.
where the judge
Where the
sits.
bench is.
So that entire area is being considered as part of.
Yes,
and it
their
includes
dedicated
that
space.
dedicated area.
At front.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're not paying for something we can't
No.
use.
Kevin?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion before we go to the actual vote. And that is, when the architect was up here, he had mentioned that he could take that one wall, make it a soft wall, and then put a door on the back. And I don't want us to vote and then have this thrown back in our face and say, but this is what you voted for. So is there a way in which
Sure.
I can?
Sure,
So
just say you want to add that second garage door. and
I
think
want to add
everybody
that second
understands what it
garage
is.
door. Yes.
Motion to amend.
Motion to amend, and I want to add that second garage door.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion on that second garage door? Seeing none, call the roll, please, on that amendment.
Alderman Rogers?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
Alderman Shaw?
Aye.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Alderman Swart?
Aye.
Alderman Stray?
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski?
Aye.
Any other amendments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second on a amended resolution. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Rogers?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Nay.
Alderman Shaw?
Aye.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Nay.
Alderman Zwart?
Aye.
Alderman Stray?
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski?
Nay.
5-3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, got that done. Moving on. Next item.
Go catch some bad guys now.
Next item is, under Plan Commission, consider act on extraterritorial certified survey map for the creation of one outlet at West 583 Allen Road, Town of Concord. We need a motion to act on the extraterritorial certified survey map.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Jason.
You have a certified survey map to create a 5-acre outlot in the town of Concord. It's on the south side of Allen Road. It does fall within the city's extraterritorial plating review jurisdictional area. It's about 1.25 miles from the city's closest boundaries. It's a non-buildable piece of land that's being created kind of as an outlot. It's going to be transferred from one property to the next. The Plan Commission reviewed this request last week. They did recommend in favor of this certified survey map, and I recommend that you act in favorably as well. Thank you.
Any comments, questions? This is, it was approved unanimously at the Plan Commission.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Rogers?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
Alderman Shaw?
Aye.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Alderman Zwart?
Aye.
Alderman Stray?
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski?
Aye.
And under new business, consider act on resolution accepting existing Thackeray Trail design and budget and determination of street extension. Mark, let's have a presentation, then we'll do a motion after we do the presentation.
So there's two items on, kind of combined in the one agenda item. This whole process started out with the Common Council providing direction to design and permit the extension. Back in 2018, it was part of our strategic plan, and it continues to be through that process. Well, why am I jumping ahead on my slides? Well, I went too far. This is just an aerial view. As I mentioned, we're going to be talking about a couple different things tonight. Here's the existing section of Thackeray Trail. So this is the area that's being discussed for reconstruct. And then the extension would start at this point here, come through here, and then connect in, and then it ties back in at Silver Lake Street. The preliminary design that was driven out of the, when we came to the council for approval of the construction of the extension. At that time, they did want to see what the existing Thackeray Trail would look like if it was redesigned. So on May 7th, they approved $50,000. July, we hired Clark Dietz. July 23rd, August 6th, and September 3rd, we had committee of the whole meetings. Those meetings consisted of Clark Dietz coming forward with the cost of the different components associated with different cross sections, different widths, how we're going to handle stormwater in the pedestrian facilities. August 19th, they had a public information meeting here in this room in order to get comments. And on September 3rd at the committee of the whole, it was the recommendation to move forward with option 2, which was an urban cross section with an estimated cost of $3.219 million. This is the cross-section that was selected. So some of the components, it's a 37-foot back-to-back, so that's back of curb to back of curb. Urban cross-section, which just means it's in the city versus a row with ditches. Curb and gutter sidewalks on both sides. And then also discussed at our last meeting was connecting sidewalks to 3 streets that go to the south. There's storm, and that's roughly out of that 3.2 million, that's about 2 million of the project cost. Storm sewers with the catch basins are approximately 840,000, and the water quality pond that'll be required because of handling the stormwater through pipe is 410,000, and that will be down in the city's park. So that's the discussion point on that. I think the committee's made the recommendation. So, you know, with the extension, there was a couple comments of why, and so that's where I'm going to go now, so that we're going to talk about that part. So the extension, as I mentioned, actually you can go back to September 8th of 2004, and that was the developer's agreement with St. Jerome's that indicated that they would be paying a cost share of the extension of Thackeray Trail. 2018, we did start the permitting process, obtained all the permitting that we needed. April 16th, down at the bottom, was on the council agenda for action. The council requested for the design, and then also August of this year, we needed a small triangular piece of land right down in this area from the golf course in order to complete the extension, and that has been purchased. So this is a project overview. As I mentioned, we started on Silver Lake Street here, St. Jerome School. This is existing right here that we would extend from there. So this area in here is wetlands, and that's where we needed the extra DNR permitting. And we also go from an asphalt multi-use path to a boardwalk in order to minimize the disturbance of that wetland area. And then we tie back in to where the existing Thackeray Trail ends now. Kind of a cross-section of what that street will be. It's a little slightly narrower than what we're talking about for the reconstruction of Thackeray Trail. The big point there being that we're not planning on any parking along there. It's just meant to be a connector through. So it allowed us to minimize the wetland disturbance, which is a requirement of the DNR. So the design components of that, it's a 33-foot back-to-back, so 4 feet narrower, curb and gutter, has a multi-use path boardwalk. We are going to realign part of the existing stream that's in that area. We're going to use storm sewers and catch basins to pick up some of the water off the street to go to the existing ponds, which the city owns and maintains. Has an estimated total cost of $1.54 million. People are wondering, how will the two sections tie together? This might surprise you, but I did this freehand just prior to the meeting, colored it myself. So this is down on the west end, and what we're showing here, here's the boardwalk that comes across, how it would transition into the 5-foot sidewalk. Here's the two homes at the end of the street. This is the park area over here. Since there's no sidewalk or anything on this side of the extension, we would probably look to cut that off, and we would need probably a crossing somewhere in here so that people aren't just crossing mid-block in an unprotected area, and the sidewalk would let them access to the park. I'm going to let Chief Berger and then also Chief Bowens here to talk about the public safety aspect of the extension.
When we talk about the extension connecting, I look at the connection, which would provide a safer system for vehicles, pedestrians, and bikes to travel. It would connect the Silver Lake and the Summit Avenue corridors, versus going out to either the Parkway or going down to Forest to cross over to either one of those sides. I think that's important. That's going to improve our emergency response between those two sides of those two corridors once again. And quite often, other officers will be tied up. We'll just have one officer available for a call for service. If they're on one side, they need to get to the other side. They need to either go down to Forest, or they need to go up to the Parkway or up to Valley Road in all likelihood. So it'll improve their response time as far as that goes. And then the last point I like to make, if you have the connection, you're providing an alternate route when Summit Avenue is congested or shut down. Right now, if we have an accident where the road is shut down at Forest, we need to divert vehicles onto the bypass, get off on Wisconsin Avenue, come back onto Silver Lake at the roundabout, and then travel back up. So this will give us another route to reroute traffic. Questions?
No, you're here, you're here.
All right. Thank you. Good evening. A lot of the fire district's comments echo the police department. The alternative route would provide the fire district quicker response times east and west without us having to go down to Oconomowoc Parkway, down to Valley Road, or all the way up to Forest. The additional routes would then also help with emergency evacuation of the high school or the south central portion of the city of Oconomowoc if we have to quickly evacuate parts of the city. Stations 1 and 3 predominantly serve the city of Oconomowoc. When we look at the response times of those two stations, there are many instances where two stations respond to incidents. So this alternative route would provide quicker response for either Station 3 to get to Station 1's area or Station 1 to get to Station 3's area. The west side is predominantly Station 3's coverage area. And when we look at the number of calls that those two stations handle, it's over 1,400 calls per year with each station, which comes out to about 42% of the hours in a day or in a year that those stations are on calls and being covered. Yes. Also, having Thackeray Trail go through could reduce response times by 2 minutes. When we look at how fast fires grow, fire doubles every 30 seconds. And modern day construction, which we've got a lot of new construction throughout the city. If we look at a house 20 years ago, we used to have 17 minutes to respond and extinguish a fire. In today's construction, we're down to less than 5 minutes. And also with regards to medical emergencies, a significant medical emergency, survival can decrease by 10% for every 2 minutes for a response time. Those are our comments.
So, we also hear why now, and some of you have already seen this presentation at an earlier date. I have shortened it up a little bit. When you look back at 1970, this is when Thackeray Trail was originally being constructed. You can see a lot of farm fields in these areas here, and especially off to the west. 1980, Olympia started up, Whitman Park Shopping Center. Hidden Ridge, which is on the other side of 67, and then also Riverwood Trails starting. 1990s got Whitman Park done, Riverwood Trails done, built out, and you can see that the whole Thackeray Trail area is fairly well built out. So the first leg of the bypass happened between 1990 and 2000, so it was actually completed in 1992, which changed the topography through here. The original, I believe the original design, they were looking at this project since 1960, had the road, or the street sitting up a lot higher, and so when they came through and constructed, they dug down so that the traffic was down below the homes in order for decrease the sound. One of the things I did was brought extra storm water from this area down through Thackeray Trail that it was never designed to take. Here's 2010. We can see a lot more of the development that's gone on, and especially when we get over into this area of the city, down in here, and this is where the school is. St. Jerome's was also built, so 2017, we now have the connections through Silver Lake Trails that ties us, and these streets then come back. Right here is where Thackeray Trail comes out now onto Silver Lake Street. So there's been, quite a bit of growth in that area over the past 47 years. So that's what we have. It's up for the council to discuss whether or not there's support for the extension of Thackeray Trail.
Thank you. Okay, so we need a motion to consider and act on a resolution accepting existing Thackeray Trail design and budget and determination of street extension. Do we have a motion for this resolution? Nobody?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. We can open up discussion. I know there's been some questions about what gets done first and what we want to do, but
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'll start that out. So the way the resolution reads right now, it's like a either or at the bottom. So I guess we have to decide at some point whether we're going to do the extension as part of this resolution or potentially pull it out of the resolution and make it a separate resolution, which could just simply be a resolution approving the extension or not. I said in the last comment section, when we discussed the actual final design of the reconstruction, that I would be uncomfortable spending $3.2 million to reconstruct the road when we could consider alternatives if we're not going to do the extension. But I have a couple real quick questions about the financing. How are we financing the reconstruction? I thought we were using some of our road funds for the next cycle.
So the reconstruction would be debt, the 3.2. The 1.5 estimate is from impact fees.
Okay, so the extension is all impact fees and St. Jerome's.
Correct.
So, but the road construction's debt. Why aren't we using just our road funds for that? Our regular road funds? Why are we using debt?
We only have $1 million levy.
Yeah, but we got the
So-
extra million.
So in 2020 is the year that we'd gone out and got the grant for the Forest Street project. You may recall a few years back, we put a thin coat of asphalt over that street in order to carry it through. It's in need. So there's flooding in that area, so we got a major storm sewer project to go through there. It's got to be completed next year. If we've at least got it started, we could ask for an extension on the grant, but that's when we do need to be constructing that. So that's taking up the street funds. That's about approximately $1.7 million. So if we only look at including the extension, obviously that's impact fees. But then in the following year, if you're going to do the reconstruction, you don't carry $3.2 million in the levy.
How is that going to affect the taxpayer, the debt on the 3.2? We're adding more to the tax rolls then? Because that's outside of levy. It's outside of levy restrictions, right?
Would this be done in 2021, the reconstruct? Is that what you're looking at?
Well, and that's the recommendation. That's been my recommendation, and Clark Dietz has looked at this when we look at the timing of, completing an RFP, getting an engineer on. It's a fairly extensive design, especially with the fact that all the water mains going to be getting replaced. So to get it all designed and ready, you're probably towards the end of 2020 before that's ready for bid, which wouldn't be the time to bid the project.
So if you, if you did it in 2021, then you'd have the million in levy and $1.5 million that we borrow, so then that would just be in addition to that. That would be the only project for that year. Or would you have other projects for
That's-
21?
That could be, yes.
That would be my
So
preference.
you would do one project in 2021,
And it'd basically be that road.
that, be that road.
I,
which
that would be my preference in adding more debt, seeing how we just voted to add 9.6 million in debt.
So it'd be the 1 million levy plus whatever is
9.2,
additional for.
whatever.
So if that was the way it was done in 2021. So in 2020, you would do the extension with impact fees just to get it ready, and then in 2021, do the road.
And use our $2 million of normal road,
$2.5 million.
2.5 million of
Yeah.
normal road funding. Okay. I'm comfortable with that proposal, if that's how we move forward, as long as that's, I don't think it has to be part of the resolution.
No.
Yeah, as long as that's the understanding.
It'll be detailed out in the long-term financial
Right.
plan as we move forward.
Okay.
then. Yeah.
Good.
Mr. Riffle, could you,
With Ps or Fs?
I used to get Fs in school, yes, that's in there. but-
Shock. Didn't.
Yeah, well, that's why you're a lawyer and I used to be a whiskey peddler, so. Anyway. And I forgot my question. Oh, I have two of them.
Have that effect on people.
A, can we stop this project, the extension, in any other way? And B is, can you tell me how you acquired that little piece of swampland back there and that we needed to do for the extension?
The answer to question 1 is yes.
Okay,
The answer to question 2 is you condemned it.
I didn't condemn it.
No, this common council acquired it through eminent domain. You paid $10,000 for it. 71,
Oh, yeah.
17
You're right.
square feet.
And there's a lot of people on this council that didn't ever want to do eminent domain again. So I'm just bringing that up to all you 7 other people that are on that committee here. So thank you for that
You're
comment.
welcome.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Charlie.
So is the existing motion to do,
This is the existing motion.
yeah, well, it doesn't tell me whether or not it's the extension or not the extension. It's listed here either way, it's one
Right.
or the other.
Can
So
we
which
split
one
'em?
are we
Can we
actually
split
gonna
'em
be
and-
voting
Divide the
on?
question by a motion.
Can I make a,
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we vote on the extension first
Okay.
and the design second for the design of reconstruct.
So for a point of order for a parliamentarian, right now we have a motion on the floor for this resolution as stated.
And he's
So-
made a motion to divide the question.
Okay. Well, and how do we divide the question, I guess? We just pull out the last section then?
No, he made a motion to vote on the division, or the extension,
Trail extension.
but there's no second yet.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a
Alright.
second on the extension. So the extension will be voted on first to say we're gonna do it or we're not gonna do it, and then we'll vote on the reconstruction of the existing.
Yes.
Comments?
Yes, I have a few comments, you know. I heard the chief and the chief talking. It kind of caught me by surprise. You know, I'm a big safety guy, you know, safety first. I don't think there's any problem with the split fire departments because one gets there quicker than the other, and the other one's backing up. And the chief's police patrol cars are all over the place, and I don't quite get the extension part of it. But I guess they're the experts, and I'm just a guy sitting back here. And, you know, if that goes through, the police guys will probably be there because there'll be so many accidents because of that speedway. It's going to be a trap. There's nothing that you can do about it. Then I heard some nonsense a couple meetings ago about, well, what are we going to do with Silver Lake Street? Put a stoplight there? There's $200,000. And there's going to be, or a stop sign there? That takes away the people that want to use Silver Lake Street, which is the smart way to get around town in the first place. We all know that the mayor wants it because he wants to go that way. And my guy from the left here, he's even talking about wanting it, and he wants to become the mayor because he can get. Who shut it off? And You know,
There's still time to take out, papers.
well, I might. And I will win, so just to let you know. And I only have to put up one sign, so. But, that's the safety issue, Chief and Chief, is going down Thackeray Trail. Because that's just gonna be a mad dash for everything that you possibly can. And the people over there don't want this thing. St. Jerome's is on the hook for $734,000. So if we were to stop this thing, and we would never have to have it brought up again, because we always said if we turn it down, it'll come again, absurd. So my friend, the lawyer over there, said we can stop it. So you tell me how we can stop it.
By
voting against it.
Against the extension.
Well, then all of a sudden, like you said, if we voted against it, then they're gonna be, 2 years down the road, they're gonna come up with another flimsy
You
excuse.
gotta keep running and keep winning your argument.
Oh, I haven't got that much running time left in me, so.
Alderman Shaw.
Yeah, my biggest concern with the extension, if you do extend Thackeray Trail through to Silver Lake Street, is there's already a problem at Bolson and Silver Lake Street every morning, every afternoon when this high school traffic is there, and this will only add to that traffic. So I just don't see where this extension does anything other than cause more problems for those people in that area down there that's already got too much traffic the way it is.
Okay. Go ahead. Yep.
A couple weeks ago, when we talked in Committee of the Whole, there were some of us that were for this, and some of us that were adamantly against this, and some that were on the fence. And one council member made the comment that a vote no on this is an easy vote, meaning that's just the easy way out. And my response to that was that no vote for us is easy. I will take exception to that. Consent agenda items are easy votes. But this isn't an easy vote. And I think that every single one of us is taking our role very seriously here to make a good decision on this. I have heard reason to extend it, but I don't feel like I've heard good enough reason to extend it now. I think at some point, it may be extended, but I have not heard good enough reason to extend this at this point. I do like the reconstruction, and I like the reconstruction as it's been presented to us, because then it does give us the option down the road. If this is to be extended, then the infrastructure is there to do that. But at this point, I'm not voting to extend it.
Go ahead.
One of the reasons we started talking about reconstruction is I think the council tried to work with the folks that came in and had objections, they had concerns about safety, and one of the major concerns about safety was sidewalks and kids walking in the street and going to school. The only reason we started talking about a $3.1 or $3.2 million reconstruction of what, in my estimation, is a developer's mistake and or the state's mistake when they created the bypass and created water issues that we now have to fix, was because the extension was going to go through allowing that connectivity. You essentially have a huge chunk of the city that only has 2 roads connecting it. And if there is a problem, and I think the 2 chiefs were persuasive on, evacuations from the high school and connectivity. Those things do make a difference. I used to be an EMT and a firefighter. And if you have to drive down one more road because there's an accident on Summit and Forest, and you do have to go all the way down or you have to go around, that takes time, and that time is critical when someone's dying of a heart attack. So here's the other thing. I was sitting here looking at a map, and I just wonder what people think on all these other roads that connect everywhere else in the city. It's not unsafe. It's a road that connects with sidewalks and parking on the road like every other single part of the city. So, I'm not that concerned. I think if we don't vote for the extension, then we need to go back. We need to vote down the reconstruction, figure out something that's cheaper. Because I don't want to go into more debt, and I want to fix it, but I don't necessarily think that we need to put in sidewalks everywhere and, put in storm sewer and a pond and everything else that's going to go in. It's not you have to do one or the other. It's we can still fix the road, but we could probably do it for a heck of a lot cheaper. And we can fix some of the other issues. Now, their ditches are going to stay if we fix it in other ways. But there's other ways to control the water without completely reconstructing everything. And I think we should fix it right, and I think we should put the extension in, because that's what a city looks like. Cities are connected. You go into New York, those cities, these streets connect. There's people connecting. It's not dangerous. So I just wonder what people on Westover and Shangri-La Drive and all the other drives that connect think. I mean, is that a thoroughfare? No. And nobody came out and complained when Newman connected his 370 units to my subdivision, and that connects, and that's gonna be a massive amount of people coming through our subdivision. But I had people complain that were along that road, and I said, you know what? You're gonna use the road too. You're gonna connect to the other side to get to Sawyer. Or if something's blocked up, you're gonna go the other way, or go through the subdivision, or go to one of the parks or one of the other. So, look, I mean, cities connect, and I think it makes sense for a variety of reasons. So I'm gonna be voting for the extension. I'm gonna be voting for the reconstruction, but not both.
All good points. I support them, of course. I agree with you that that road should go through. I think we just voted in a new police station tonight because we were looking towards the future of what we need. And this is something that we're gonna need eventually. There's gonna be a retirement, not a retirement facility, but assisted living. Senior living, but isn't there gonna be some assisted type?
A bit of assisted, but it's right
Anyway,
there.
there's
It's
more
right there.
calls that go through that, that's gonna be right in that area, and if we can save a couple minutes per call on those, we might save somebody's life. You know, that's important to most of us. I think it's gonna go through inevitably, and we might as well do it now, because we're gonna have some help from St. Jerome's, which they may or may not like that, but I think it'll probably improve their flow of traffic in and out of there at some point as well. I think if we're not gonna push the road through, we shouldn't be spending all the money to put all the other facilities in. I think for walking and biking, it'll provide a good way to get downtown without having to go down Summit Avenue. And I just think you're gonna alleviate some traffic off of Summit, and that's gonna get very crowded someday, and people are not gonna wanna sit in line on that road on a daily basis.
The connectivity is a common theme. Cost is the other portion of that. And with this particular project, the way the budget is, we had one bidder on it. We're gonna combine this project with the extension project with other projects and get it rebid. That should drive down cost. So the share of what St. Jerome's would participate in should go down, I would think, with a more competitive bid structure. And I'm a member of St. Jerome's, you're a member of St. Jerome's, and the agreement that's in place with that church isn't dollar specific, it's percentage. And it's not gonna get any cheaper 5 years from now if it is a one-off bid. So from an economic standpoint, now is a better time to deal with it than 5 years from now. 5 years from now, when that area is grown to a point where you'd wanna see that connection, we should have the foresight to have it in place now, when we're redoing the road, when we're redoing the water main, when we're doing our job to enhance the infrastructure and bring the community together.
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, in rebuttal to that, back in 2004, I think St. Jerome's got the short end of the deal, according to their attorney, and at that time, nobody knew what that expense was going to be. My second point, it would be, now what this one goes through, that, the brain thrust in the future is going to eventually put that other trail through just down the road.
The Parkway?
Parkway, and that's going to be even totally more stupidity than this one going through, because you've got Highway B doing on there. And as far as like the prices going down, now, we just talked about it at the other building we just passed. The only people that got the price down was the court. Right? They got their share going down, but St. Jerome's won't, because that road's gonna be what it is. I mean, it can't be any higher than that, but hope for their sake. I'm done.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. This is on the separated resolution. This is for the extension, to approve the extension. Call the roll, please.
I'm confused.
We're
I have a
Vote yes
motion,
is to agree to extend the road.
extend the road.
Correct.
vote on the extension only.
Vote on the extension
Right.
only, and then after that,
Okay.
we'll vote on the design of the other road.
All right. Alderman Rogers.
Nay.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Nay.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Nay.
Alderman Zwart,
Aye.
Alderman Stray,
Somebody's going to kiss their sister. Nay.
Alderman Kavieski,
Aye.
4-4 tie.
Well, I agree with what Matt said about the road needing to be reconstructed properly. And the only way it would really work would be to have the road go all the way through, and I think Derek said the same thing, so I'll vote aye. Now we come up with the road reconstruction as a 37-foot back-to-back urban cross-section. That motion is on the floor. Any other discussion? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Alderman Rogers,
Aye.
Alderman Rozak,
Aye.
Alderman Shaw,
Aye.
Alderman Ellis,
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman
Aye.
Stray. Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Okay, moving on. Mayoral appointments. Let's see what I got here. This is for a library board. This is for Barbara Elwood Getch. This is an ex officio Jefferson County representative. This would give a member of the Jefferson County to be part of the library board as a non-voting member. And the motion we need is to confirm the appointment of Barbara Elwood Getch as a Jefferson County ex officio representative to the library. Do we have that motion?
So moved.
Second?
You want to speak on it a little bit?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, as you mentioned, this is for an ex officio representative of Jefferson County on the Oconomowoc Public Library Board. Barb Elwood Getch is the person who County Administrator of Jefferson County, Ben Waymeyer, appointed, Jefferson County Board approved. Barb is a retired school librarian from the Oconomowoc Area School District, regular user of both the Oconomowoc and actually the Watertown Library as well. So this would be a 3-year appointment like all other library board seats except the council representative, mayor representative. So yeah, that's a little bit of background on it.
Okay. And the reason that person is being put on, because Jefferson County contributes a significant amount of money to our library, and having a member just kind of brings them into the realm of what we're doing. Any questions?
Does she live in Jefferson? Does she live in Jefferson County?
Yeah, she lives in Exonia.
Oh,
Yep.
okay, good.
So it's a member of our school district still.
Right, yes.
Yep, good.
We have a motion on the floor in a second. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Rogers,
Aye.
Alderman Rozak,
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Staff reports?
Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to remind everyone that we have the Western Lakes Fire District meeting tomorrow at 6:30 PM at the Village of Summit Hall. Also would like to thank you for the support of the projects tonight. We look forward to working with all of you to make them successful.
Thank you. Reports and comments from Alderman?
I think I said I won't be there tomorrow.
Yeah, we
I
know.
got
Yeah,
that. I got another meeting.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that, it's really been kind of a neat process to be a part of this whole public safety building conversation. We've had a lot of back and forth. We've been in the trenches with this, and even though, I had some questions and a few reservations going into tonight, we voted to go forward, and I'm excited to do so, and just get this whole council around that and supporting that and seeing what it brings for the city of Oconomowoc, so.
Go ahead.
I too want to thank you for the debate. It wasn't an easy decision to make. If you think that I was in any way, shape, or form not serious, I was very serious. Because what we've done is we've done something that's going to outlive us all. And I am really excited to see the final product. It's going to really make Oconomowoc a very proud place. So I'm really excited for this. And Lou, you had some excellent points. Matt, you had some excellent points. So I'm really excited
17
about
toilets open to the public?
The outside ones are.
What was the
Quick
question?
comments? Any other Alderman
I might want
comments?
to try them. That might be.
Reports and comments from the mayor. I'd just like to thank everybody for the years of going through these debates and keeping it civil and very constructive conversations, and I think hopefully we'll all be pleased with the results. Next item is a closed session, per Wisconsin Stats 19.85, paren 1, paren E, deliberating, negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing in public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. This is on the sanitary district contracts. We need a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Yep, we got a second.
We got a second? Call the roll, please.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Shaw. Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Zwart.
Aye.
Alderman Stray. Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Okay, we're in closed session. Hurry up.